skies over Western Europe have been patrolled by aircraft wearing American insignia. This video ordnance program takes a look at the men and machines of today's United States Air Force in Europe. The United States Air Force in Europe, or USAFE for short, is the largest overseas element of the Air Force and one of its most potent forces. USAFE evolved from air units stationed in Europe during the Second World War, shaped over the past decades by America's NATO commitment. USAFE's traditional role has been the containment of the forces of the Warsaw Pact, a role which is changing with improvements in the political climate in Europe. USAFE has three main tactical elements: the 17th Air Force, responsible for units in Central Europe, the 3rd Air Force for units in Great Britain, and the 16th Air Force for the Mediterranean region. In addition, USAFE is supported by units of both the Military Airlift Command and the Strategic Air Command, stationed throughout Europe. The 17th Air Force is concentrated mainly in Germany, and it is most heavily committed to the fighter role. It includes 4 squadrons of F-15 Eagle air superiority fighters based in Germany and the Netherlands, a wing of Wild Weasel electronic warfare aircraft, 5 squadrons of F-16 fighter bombers, and a number of reconnaissance and electronic support units. The 16th Air Force's 3 F-16 Fighting Falcon squadrons have been located in Spain, and there are plans to move them to Italy. The 3rd Air Force in Great Britain includes the most powerful strike element of USAFE, with 7 F-111 squadrons, as well as 6 A-10 Thunderbolt ground attack squadrons. The F-111 strike force, based in Britain, will be the special focus of this program. The variety of aircraft types making up USAFE allows it to perform all of the most important tactical air power missions. The F-15 Eagle and the F-16 Fighting Falcon fighters can perform both air defense and air superiority missions. The A-10 Thunderbolt was designed specifically for the European environment to attack thickly armored tanks and perform close air support missions. The F-111 strike fighter is designed for deep attack far behind enemy lines in the battlefield interdiction role. Wild Weasel aircraft, such as the F-16 and F-4G, have the responsibility of eliminating enemy air defense gun and missile systems which might threaten other elements of the strike force. The EF-111 Raven provides electronic jamming services to blind enemy radar. USAFE's mission is closely integrated with the other NATO air forces. It is common to see NATO aircraft at United States bases in Europe engaged in joint exercises and training missions. This Belgian Air Force F-16B trainer seems at home at RAF Lakenheath, the base of USAFE's 48th Tactical Fighter Wing. Here at Spangdahlem Air Base in Germany, British Tornadoes can be seen mingled amongst the F-16s and the F-4Gs of the 52nd Tactical Fighter Wing. USAFE also hosts American Air National Guard squadrons flown in from the United States, such as these A-7 Corsair attack aircraft. USAFE's offensive punch comes from its attack and strike aircraft. 3 aircraft types are used in this role: the F-16 fighter bomber and the A-10 tank buster for the close air support role, and the F-111 strike fighter for long-range missions. The A-10 Thunderbolt has been specifically designed for tank hunting and is one of the few jet aircraft with armor to protect its pilot, engines, and other vital elements from ground fire. Short and medium-range missions are the task of the F-16 fighter bomber. The F-16 is not only capable of carrying out ground attack missions, but its speed and maneuverability allow it to defend itself from enemy fighters. USAFE's A-10 and F-16 can also be supplemented by other types of aircraft flown by Air National Guard units based in the United States. Although not a regular component of USAFE, the A-7 Corsair II attack aircraft is often seen in the skies of Europe. The long-range offensive arm of USAFE is the General Dynamics F-111-Strike fighter, sometimes nicknamed the Aardvark due to its long, droopy nose. It is a substantially larger aircraft than the F-16 or A-10, and it was designed from the outset to operate in all weather conditions, day or night. An F-111 pilot describes the difference in the mission of these different aircraft.
F-111 is all-weather, night, day attack fighter bomber. What we do, we take our munitions in low and fast is a primary mission that we have through the weather. Whatever any kind of conditions, that's where we basically like to fly. Keeps us safe. No one else likes to be up there with us and stay out of anybody's eyesight.
The F-111 contains a highly sophisticated mixture of features to carry out its missions. The F-111's advanced terrain-following radar allows it to fly at very low altitudes at speeds over 500 miles per hour to better evade enemy radars and radar-guided anti-aircraft missiles. The radar is a particularly useful feature in a European environment, since bad weather often interferes with low-altitude flying. Bad weather can prevent operations by the F-16s and the A-10s. The ultimate version of the F-111 series, the F-111F, is fitted with the Pave Tac Pod, a system which allows the F-111 to use laser-guided bombs to attack targets with pinpoint accuracy. The Pave Tac shoots a beam of invisible laser light at the target. Some of this light is reflected back, and the laser-guided bomb hones in on this reflected light. The Pave Tac also has advantages even when dropping unguided bombs.
The laser does two things when we're dropping what we call laser-guided bombs. Number one, it updates bomb range, which is very critical when you're dropping a bomb. It's basically a triangle. The one leg of the triangle is your altitude above the ground, and you need to know another leg, the hypotenuse, and that is a tricky equation to solve. Well, if you get that solved, you have drop much better bombs. The laser does that, obviously, because it's very fast, shoots very accurate, shoots straight down to the target, you know exactly where it's going, updates the system. That's good for bombing, and then once the bomb is released, it's going to go there because you've got everything figured out. You've got the right airspeed and everything. The bomb is heading in that direction. Now you're going to make double sure that it goes there. You fire the laser, and then the bomb opens its eyes. It has canards on both sides, and then it steers the bomb into the target. It's a very good system.
For the personnel of the 494th Tactical Fighter Squadron based at Lakenheath, England, the day's work centers around the F-111 aircraft. A machine of this complexity requires about 25 man-hours of work on the ground for every hour it spends in the air. On the landing gear door of each aircraft is the name of its crew chief and assistant crew chief, a tangible reminder of the crucial role played by the ground crew in keeping the aircraft flying.
The responsibilities of the crew chief and the assistant dedicated crew chief basically are to take care of all the general maintenance on the aircraft. Anything ranging from servicing of gas, oil, it requires air servicing, liquid oxygen, gaseous oxygen, and there's a few other small systems that require some servicing. In addition to the servicing, you have the forms documentation. There's a lot of paperwork that goes with these airplanes, and it's a lot more than people think. In addition to that, We take care of launching and recovery of the aircraft. Inspections, you have pre-flight, through flight, and basic post-flight inspections. We do those out here on the flight line. They range anywhere from an hour to 3 hours. We have the dedicated crew chief, which is usually a staff sergeant or above, and the assistant, which can be anywhere from a airman through a buck sergeant usually. And they'll be the two people that are solely responsible for that aircraft. The Air Force has basically given them a $30 million aircraft and to take care of it and to make sure that everything's done properly on to ensure that it's airworthy.
As the ground crew prepares the aircraft for flight, the flight crew are themselves preparing for the mission. The crew checks out current weather conditions near the base, as well as in the area in which they'll be operating. It may be sunny and dry here at Lakenheath, but up north off the Scottish coast, the weather may be very different. Training missions in European airspace have different restrictions than in the United States. There are public concerns about the noise of low-flying jets, and many areas are off limits. In spite of these restrictions, Europe provides realistic training difficult to match elsewhere.
Normally in the States, you're stuck with 1-2 ranges maximum, very restricted airspace that make you fly down the same corridors over and over again. Here in the UK, you fly anywhere. I mean, except for over restricted areas, but basically fly all over the country. Probably some of the prettiest country you've ever seen in your life, especially go up to western Scotland, look down the clear blue waters, you know, cows and sheep and fields and just amazing.
With planning completed, the air crew gets into flight gear for the mission. The squadron has a special department to make sure that flying suits and other safety equipment are kept in prime condition.
This is a life support shop, and we work basically with all the air crew. We maintain all the flying equipment, all the survival equipment that they have in the jet, including the QRK and the up and lower. And what we'll do for the helmets, we inspect them every 30 days. For G-suits, every 30 days and 120 days. And we just maintain them and make sure no holes, cracks, or anything like that. Make sure all the metal parts are not rusted and they operate. Make sure the oxygen mask doesn't stick, leak, or anything like that.
Basically what the inspection entails is a breakdown of the mask itself. The oxygen hose or the valve itself may become clogged up, saliva, anything else, while the pilot's breathing. This may clog it up and not enable him to breathe properly. The hoses may be punctured or be damaged, which would, of course, create a leak, and the oxygen hose itself will not be able to give them as much oxygen as they need.
Over the past decade, the flight suit has evolved to help aircrew better withstand the rigors of jet flight. High-speed maneuvering creates artificial gravitational forces, called G's, which distort the flow of blood in the body and can cause a loss of consciousness.
All our equipment is made mainly of Nomex, like this material here. It's fire retardant, fire resistant. We're restricted to wearing just cotton and that for the problems we may encounter when we are in some type of an accident or a crash or something on there. What I'm putting on now is the anti-G garment, the G-suit that we wear, which we hook the suit up to the aircraft when we fly, and it senses the G's that we are pulling on the aircraft and inflates off of some bleed air off the engines in the aircraft. What we're trying to do is keep the blood from pooling in your lower extremities so you have it available for your brain, because when you lose the blood to your brain, then you're out like light. This is where it goes in the aircraft through the umbilical, plugs right into there, and then it pumps the air into there. Flying over water, we need our life preserver units. It will allow us, if we do have to leave the capsule for any reason, if it's sinking or does not stay floated, that we will can successfully stay afloat out in the water. Once we are out into the water, we pull the tabs, it blows up, we attach them together, and we can float out there. It's sort of like a small inner tube we take on ourselves. We have winter or summer jackets. This is a summer jacket, not quite as heavy. Nomex material again on that for protecting us from the elements. Last thing is the helmet. You can have a dark or light visor. The dark visor fly in the daytime. We have a light visor when we fly at night, like that, so you can still protect your eyes in case of a bird strike. Any problem there?
The ground crew makes final checks before each aircraft flight and often stands by to prepare the aircraft again for additional flights later in the day.
Do a lot of night flying. You know, it's not uncommon to be out here 24 hours a day. You know, a lot of these, because you know they come. Let's say they come back at 11:30 at night. You know, we'll have maintenance going on until day shift comes in the morning. On all these, you know, it's nonstop. The maintenance is never ending on these.
The F-111 is flown by a crew of two, the pilot in the left seat and the weapons systems officer in the right.
The pilot, which I am, I try and make sure and monitor that the plane gets to the release point for the weapons on time at the correct parameters. And then weapons system officer, he is in our primary delivery modes. He will get the release the weapons, make sure that they are on the target, that he's monitoring the systems, that we can actually hit the target and take it out at the specified times.
Basically, if you want to get right down to the facts, the pilot more or less steers the aircraft, and I tell him which direction to go, and then put the radar crosshairs on the target, and then we release the weapons on the target. And in general terms, he rows the boat, and I shoot the ducks.
In view of the sophistication of the F-111, it's not surprising that its cockpit is quite complex.
Okay, what we got here is from left to right, we have a IFF, which basically what it does is it gives a radio signal out to air controlling agencies, and it tells them who we are. Some other things we have over here, we have the terrain following radar, which allows us, when we turn it on, we do our checks that we have to do. It allows us to follow the Earth at a preset level, anywhere from 250 to 1,000 feet. Other things, what I really like is the PAVTAC. It's the pod that's underneath. What it is, it's an infrared detector set, and we use that to find our target. And then when we find our target, we fire a laser that's underneath, and we guide bombs that we're carrying into the target, so we get a pretty precise hit on the target. It's very accurate.
For much of the attack run, the weapons systems officer will be heads down in the radar display.
I try not to spend too much time in there if I don't have to, because the more heads down time you have, the less time you have to look for enemies enemy air interceptors coming in after you. So you try and stay heads out as much as you can. There's really no reason to stay in there too much. The longer I stay in there, the more disoriented I get, because you know you're down, you're heading the feed bag like this, and he's doing all kinds of wild stuff, and you come up and it takes you a little while to get reoriented, or reorientate, as the Air Force would say, and figure out where you're at.
Flying the F-111 under the automatic control of the terrain-following radar is a very distinctive feature of this aircraft. The F-111 crews had nicknames for this type of flying, calling it TFing or TFR flight.
It's an eye-opener. We don't have to really touch anything. If we have all the autopilots hooked up, I can almost go to sleep, but we're just monitoring the systems more or less, and the computer gets us to where we're going. Flying TFRs at night are a very eye-opening experience, because we can't see anything out in front, but the plane is still maneuvering around and doing whatever it needs to do. And all we have to tell what's happening is by the instruments and by the radar screens we have. So we can't see if anything's coming towards us, if we're really going to be hitting anything, except by the instruments we have. So we have to be paying a lot of attention to what's going on.
In the beginning, it was very, very easy, because ignorance is bliss. You really don't know how close you come to dying. But the further and further, the more often you do it, it gets scarier and scarier. You see different friends of yours getting killed, and then you'll break out of the clouds every once in a while. You look over, there'll be a mountain on both sides of your wing. You're going, holy mackerel, this is a good opportunity to bust my tail. And not easy.
The terrain-following radar makes the F-111 a particularly stable platform for dropping bombs at low altitudes.
This is like a Cadillac when you're flying low level. It's amazing how smooth it is at, say, 500 feet with say, 30 knots of wind, gusting, how smooth this is. It's like riding a big old Eldorado, big old 68 Eldorado with leather seats and cruise control on down the highway. That's about what it's like. But I don't think, they don't have anything that could replace it. I heard they did a study, and basically what they can't, so for a jet to replace the 111, what they came up with was another 111. Something a little more improved, you know, with a little more agility and better cockpit vision, but basically it was just another 111.
The F-111 has a phenomenal payload and can carry over 6 tons of bombs, including a wide assortment of laser-guided bombs. Even on a long-range mission, the F-111 can carry heavy loads, such as a dozen 500-pound unguided snake-eye bombs, or 4 2,000-pound laser-guided bombs. These days, the F-111s carry electronic defensive pods mounted under the tail of the aircraft to hide themselves from enemy radars by electronic jamming. Under the wings of the F-111s are Sidewinder missiles to defend themselves from enemy fighters. During practice missions over Europe in peacetime, they will sometimes engage in mock dogfights with friendly fighters.
Every once in a while, with some of the formations that we fly, we have possibly some aggressor-type aircraft that might roll in on a couple airplanes in front of us, and they're kind of, you know, just dead meat, basically. I shot down 2 Mirages yesterday, as a matter of fact. Yeah.
In the spring of 1986, after yet another terrorist outrage, the United States decided to retaliate by bombing several military targets in Libya. Washington selected a night air raid, launched from bases in England and carriers in the Mediterranean. The F-111Fs of the 48th Tactical Fighter Wing were the obvious choice for the job, with their unique capabilities and pave-tacked night bombing systems. Codenamed Operation El Dorado Canyon, the mission entailed a grueling 13-hour journey over 5,600 nautical miles in length, requiring 4 in-flight refueling from the big USAFE KC-10 and KC-135 aircraft. The F-111 strike fighters from Lakenheath were supported by EF-111 Raven electronic warfare aircraft from the nearby base at Upper Haven. The EF-111s used their powerful electronic jamming equipment to neutralize Libyan radars and radar-directed anti-aircraft weapons. The Navy also took part in the mission, their A-6 intruders having many of the same capabilities as the F-111s. The F-111s were assigned 3 targets in the Tripoli area, while the Navy's carrier aircraft struck 2 targets in the Benghazi area. On approaching the Libyan coast in the early morning hours of the 15th of April 1986, the F-111s used their terrain-following radars to navigate to their targets, the Azazia barracks and the Tripoli airfield. This is an actual tape from the mission showing the radar scan. At close range, the weapons systems officer switched to the paved tack to get a more detailed view, seen here. The Tripoli airfield was crowded with 5 large Ilyushin IL-76 transport aircraft of the type seen here. This is the view of the weapons systems officer from one of the F-111s attacking Tripoli airfield as a dozen Mark 82 500-pound snake-eye bombs obliterate the transports. This picture turns upside down as the paved tack slews backwards underneath the aircraft. Out of 88 bombs dropped by the F-111s, only 3 missed their targets. The raid lasted for less than 20 minutes, and all the targets were left smoldering ruins. 1 F-111 was lost due to unknown causes. The pilots, weary from a long, tense flight to the target, headed back to their bases in Britain in the pre-dawn hours. With the dramatic political changes that have occurred in Eastern Europe since 1989, the rationale for the United States Air Force's presence in Europe is changing. For 5 decades, American warplanes have flown alongside those of their NATO allies with a mission of preserving the peace during the tense years of the Cold War. This mission may finally come to an end as tensions between the superpowers diminish. But the Libya mission of 1986 and the deployment of Lakenheath F-111s to the Mideast in 1990 as part of the Desert Shield operation against Iraq strongly suggest that the role of the USAFE-Strike force is not yet over.